a TV ad targeting Ernst in Iowa. Here's a clip from it.
Pete Hegseth is a patriot, a decorated combat veteran, and a warrior who will stop at nothing to keep America safe. The deep state is trying to stop his nomination, but Pete isn't backing down. Call your senator today and urge them to confirm Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense.
So that ad seems to suggest that Joni Ernst is part of the deep state. She's a combat veteran, a survivor of sexual assault. She has legitimate concerns, as do many of your Republican colleagues, about Hegseth's nomination. Are you comfortable with this pressure campaign targeting Ernst?
Well, that didn't come from the Trump team themselves. You know, people have their own ideas, their own directions. I think Joni has the right to be able to question this, and I think Pete's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's on Capitol Hill. He's speaking with senators. There's been absolutely no no's from Republican senators at this point. He continues to make his case, and his case is something that when he sits down with you, he's able to articulate very well. I think Pete will make an outstanding Secretary of Defense, and I believe that he's going through the process. Now, he has an uphill battle, but he's taken the fight straight to Capitol Hill like he should. He's going to have a hearing in Senate Armed Services. He'll have to answer 12 tough questions, and I believe he'll be able to answer every one of them. At the end of the day, I believe Pete will be our next Secretary of Defense, and he'll be perfect for the role. I mean, right now we've had Secretary Austin. Secretary Austin is a general in the Army. He has been a disaster. We have low morale. The only reason why we are even kind of close to having some type of recruiting numbers is because he's lowered the threshold, but we're nowhere near where we should be or where the previous threshold for recruitment should be, because people aren't wanting to fight for Secretary Austin. You have Pete, who is a combat veteran, 2 Bronze Stars. He was a major in the Army. He's been in the public sector. He'll go there and make the changes in the Defense Department that needs to take place. And I think he's exactly the one we need, which is why I believe he will get confirmed at the end of the day.
A number of your fellow Republican senators have publicly expressed concern about Hegseth's reputation for excessive alcohol drinking. Here is what Hegseth said a few days ago on the Megyn Kelly show.
First of all, I've never had a drinking problem. No one's ever approached me and said, "Oh, you should really look at getting help for a drink." Never. I've never sought counseling, never sought help. I respect and appreciate people who do.
Just a few years ago, however, on the Will Cain show, this is how Hegseth described his experience with alcohol after returning from Iraq.
I'd look around at 10 o'clock and be like, what am I going to do today? How would I drink? Some beers. How would I go have lunch and have some beers? How would I meet my 1 or 2 buddies and have some beers? And one beers leads to many, leads to self-medication, leads to I've earned this. Like, don't tell me I can't.
It seems to be in that Will Cain clip that he's describing having a drinking problem. How do you reconcile that with him now claiming that he's never had an issue with alcohol?
Jake, that wasn't him saying he had an alcohol problem. That was him being honest. Unfortunately, a lot of our combat vets have come back and faced the same thing. They're sitting there and they had their identity in the service. They had a job to do. They were responsible for certain things, and they get out of the service and they're back and they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They've had a lot of experiences that the regular population doesn't. They have these memories, these thoughts, these sounds, the smells that are still coming back to them. And they turn to drinking with their buddies. That doesn't mean that they had a drinking problem. That means that every combat veteran has had the same issues. That's why they have VFW set up. That's why they have American Legion set up. What he was describing is what most combat veterans have faced. And for the media to go after him and start describing that as a drinking problem is individuals that doesn't understand combat veterans because they've never been there. They've never been in combat. They've never seen the horrific stuff that comes by that. They've never tasted the dirt in their mouth. They've never heard the horrible sounds in their ears. They've never had the sights that they can't get rid of. They've never had the dreams in the middle of the night. And I think it's hypocritical for them to even question that. Now, if he did have a drinking problem, that would be obvious. But to make something out of it that isn't there just because he's going through Secretary of Defense, the media should be ashamed of themselves. They should put themselves in their shoes and every other combat veteran's shoes before they go out there and criticize him.
So I have done a lot of coverage of veterans and a lot of coverage of combat. And while I have never worn the uniform, I think I do have an understanding of the need of our valiant troops when they come home to self-medicate. What I'm saying is when you're talking about drinking at 10 in the morning, that's a drinking problem. Now, it doesn't mean that there should be a stigma.
Then there's a lot of politicians that have a drinking problem, Jake.
Yes, of course. But I guess my question is.
Yeah, and then there's probably a lot of media that has a drinking problem too. And now I don't drink. I haven't tasted alcohol in many years, and never have drank at all in my life, really. And so I really don't understand that. But there's a lot of alcohol that flows through Washington, D.C. on a regular basis, and I wouldn't say that people are alcoholics or they have a drinking problem because of that. I don't see it at all. I don't see that being a problem, and I really wish that the media would move on and start focusing on what he can bring to the Secretary as Secretary of Defense, because he has a lot of good attributes too. But we only focus on the negative, and we get so caught up on running at negatives. And just because he's on this side of the confirmation process, it seems like everybody wants to point out everybody's faults. Yes, he has a past. You know, Jake, you and I both have a past, and our listeners have a past too, and we get that. He's not hiding from his past. He's answering the questions of his past. That doesn't disqualify him from being Secretary of Defense, though.
Part of the process is Republican senators and people in the media and Democratic senators and anyone asking questions about the person's qualifications and about the appropriateness of an individual. And a drunk reporter who's drinking at 10 a.m. for whatever reason is not in charge of the 3 million person Defense Department. And so there is a difference. Let me ask